Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In his first speech to a joint session of Congress, President Biden urged lawmakers to support his plan to spend trillions of dollars on the nation's infrastructure and to expand the social safety net, and funding it with new taxes on the rich. Speaking on the eve of his 100th day in office, Biden unveiled his $1.8 trillion American Families Plan.
Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable child care. We guarantee what I'm proposing in legislation, we guarantee that low and middle-income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high-quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard-pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third, the American Families Plan will finally provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave.
Biden was speaking before a room of 200 that holds 1,600. They were wearing masks and were socially distanced. He also condemned systemic racism and called on lawmakers to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. On the foreign policy front, Biden repeated his vow to end what he called the forever war in Afghanistan. He also referenced China 4 times.
We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century.
The evening also marked a historic first. 2 women sitting behind President Biden on the dais, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Kamala Harris. To mark his 100th day in office, President Biden's heading to Georgia today, where he'll meet with former President Jimmy Carter. A public health catastrophe. Officials have announced about 3,600 people died of coronavirus Wednesday, but that figure is believed to be a vast undercount. Another 380,000 new cases were confirmed as India's health system is nearing collapse with a massive surge in patients and a shortage in oxygen. In New Delhi, makeshift crematoriums are being set up in parks and parking lots. Despite the surge, elections are going ahead in West Bengal, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held large political rallies despite repeated warnings from public health experts. COVID cases are also rising in neighboring Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan. We'll go to India after headlines. A warning: the following headlines contain graphic details of hate crimes and police killings. Here in the U.S., federal prosecutors have indicted 3 white men in Georgia for hate crimes and attempted kidnapping in connection with the death of Ahmaud Arbery, the 25-year-old black man who was chased down by the men and shot to death while he was out for a jog last year. The men, retired police officer Greg McMichael, his son Travis, and their friend William Bryan, already face numerous charges in Georgia, including felony murder. In North Carolina, a state judge is refusing to release body cam footage of the police killing of Andrew Brown Jr. for at least 30 days, but he did order more footage to be shown to Brown's family. The family has only seen a 20-second snippet of video, which they say shows Brown had his hands on the steering wheel of his car when he was shot dead while police were carrying out an arrest warrant. An independent autopsy showed Brown was shot 5 times, including once in the back of the head. Harry Daniels, an attorney for the Brown family, called for the police footage to be released.
Let's not get distracted. An innocent man was gunned down, shot in the back of the head, vehicle riddled with bullets from the rear. Now I heard statements being made where he might have hit the deputies, or he might have did that. Well, show us the video. Show us the video. Show us the tape.
In Chicago, newly released video shows police killed 22-year-old Anthony Alvarez last month while he was running away during a foot chase. Police have not said why they initially confronted, then chased Alvarez. At one point in the video, he's heard saying, "Why are you shooting me?" The officer said, "You had a gun." Alvarez was killed on March 31st, 2 days after Chicago police shot dead another young Latino male, 13-year-old Adam Toledo, also after a foot chase. At the time of his death, the 7th grader had his hands empty up in the air. FBI agents have raided the New York home and office of Rudy Giuliani and seized his electronic devices as part of a probe into the attorney's dealings with Ukraine. Giuliani is the former mayor of New York, the personal attorney for Donald Trump. The FBI also seized the cell phone of conservative attorney Victoria Tensing, who's worked closely with Giuliani. In Colombia, tens of thousands of people took to the streets Wednesday after trade unions called for a national strike to protest against the government of Iván Duque and a proposed tax reform bill. At least 2 protesters were killed. Union leaders said protests occurred across Colombia.
This march is the biggest display of outrage against this government, against the tax reforms, and against the labor and pension reform. The government has gone against the country, and the country is responding in more than 500 cities in the country.
The Pentagon has confirmed to the news outlet Vox that U.S. contractors are continuing to help Saudi Arabia maintain its warplanes despite President Biden's pledge to end offensive support for Saudi's devastating 6-year war in Yemen. The Pentagon defended the role of the contractors, saying the U.S. military relationship with Saudi Arabia is, quote, important to the region. Press freedom groups are calling on Israel to release Palestinian journalist Ala al-Rimawi, who was detained a week ago when Israeli authorities raided his home. According to Reporters Without Borders, the Al Jazeera reporter has been on a hunger strike for the past week and is being held in solitary confinement. Meanwhile, another Palestinian journalist, the freelance photographer Mohammed Atik, is being held in an undisclosed location after being arrested at an Israeli checkpoint last week. Scientists have found glaciers are melting 31% faster than they did just 15 years ago. The most impacted glaciers have been in Alaska, Iceland, the Alps, and the Himalayas. Robert McNabb of Ulster University linked the melting glaciers to human-induced climate change.
On the global scale, the main driver of that is temperature. And it's hard to separate the fact that the temperature is what is causing the melt with the fact that humans are, by and large, causing the increase in temperature.
In other climate news, the Senate has voted to reimpose Obama-era regulations on methane emissions from oil and gas wells. The vote reverses a move by the Trump administration to weaken the rules on methane, which is 84 times more potent than carbon dioxide. President Biden's nominated Houston area Sheriff Ed Gonzalez to be the next head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Gonzalez was a vocal critic of the Trump administration's immigration policy, speaking out against ICE raids and the separation of families at the border. In 2017, he ended Harris County's involvement in ICE's 287G program, which deputizes local law enforcement officers to perform the functions of federal immigration agents within local jails. In Arizona, Republican Governor Doug Ducey has signed a sweeping anti-abortion bill that makes it a felony for doctors to terminate pregnancies because of a fetal genetic defect such as Down syndrome. The bill's language is so broad it could also lead to charges against nurses and other staff at health centers. Arizona State Representative Diego Espinosa blasted the new law, saying it's, quote, anti-families, anti-woman, and anti-doctor. Meanwhile, in Ecuador, pro-choice activists celebrated in Quito Wednesday after Ecuador's high court decriminalized abortion in cases of rape. And Native American activists are calling on CNN to fire commentator, former Republican Senator Rick Santorum, over remarks he made to an ultra-conservative student conference.
We came here and created a blank slate. We birthed a nation. From nothing. I mean, there's nothing here. I mean, yes, we have Native Americans, but candidly, that there isn't much Native American culture in American culture.
The National Congress of American Indians criticized CNN for not firing Santorum. The group's president, Fawn Sharp, said, quote, televising someone with his views on Native American genocide is fundamentally no different than putting an outright Nazi on television to justify the Holocaust. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman, joined by my co-host Nermeen Sheikh, also here in New York. Hi, Nermeen.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.